This podcast is brought to you by the Goosebumps Crew Podcast.
Welcome back to the AI Analysis Podcast. Today we're going where the Final Frontier podcast has gone before.
That's right. We've been watching their commentary on a particular episode of Star Trek, the original series.
An episode called The Alternative Factor. And let's just say that title probably rings some bells for a few of you out there. Maybe not good bells.
No, probably bells of, confusion.
Yeah.
Or maybe even a little bit of dread. It's definitely got a reputation.
It really does. It's notorious, I think is the word. So what we want to do in this discussion is, well, pull out the best bits, the most insightful parts from what the Final Frontier podcast had to say.
Basically give you a shortcut to understanding why this specific episode is so, infamous.
Exactly. Because watching them watch it, wow, it was a ride. Like a roller coaster, but mostly just going down.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
I was genuinely excited, though, to kind of explore this unique corner of Star Trek through their eyes. Their reactions were just so honest, sometimes totally exasperated.
It's that joy of discovery, isn't it? Even when what you're discovering is maybe a bit of a mess.
The glorious mess sometimes.
And our job here is to sort of put that into context for you. We'll connect what the Final Frontier podcast observed, their really raw reactions, to broader things like storytelling principles, sci-fi history, fan reaction.
Right, because it's not just about what happened in the episode or even just what they thought.
Exactly. It's about the why. Why did certain things not work? How did TV production back then maybe shape things? And how does even one episode, good or bad, stick around in the memory of a franchise?
Yeah, why does it matter?
We'll look at how their commentary really points out the challenges in making good sci-fi.
Yeah.
So you understand not just like, oh, that was bad, but why it fell flat and what that teaches us about telling stories.
And wow, what a start to their commentary. I mean, right off the bat, the hosts of the Final Frontier podcast, they did not hold back.
Not at all. You could just hear it in their voices, the sheer disappointment.
Yeah, the hosts just flat out said, and this is a quote, "This episode sucks. Like, no beating around the bush."
Straight to the point.
And they admitted they were totally wrong about TOS having no bad episodes. They actually said they had to eat a dish of crow. You could almost hear them grimacing.
That sort of comedic regret, right? Like, oh man, I really wish I hadn't said that.
Totally. They kept saying they had so many notes, but the notes just turned into frantic scribbles of what is happening.
Oh, I can picture that. Just pure confusion.
Their frustration was just so clear even watching them. It really set the stage for, well, the whole experience.
And when a longtime fan calls something the first bad episode, it's not just about quality, is it?
No, it feels deeper.
It's about that relationship you build with a show, with a world. You have expectations. You expect things to make sense, characters to act consistently.
Right, the internal logic.
Exactly. And when that gets violated, that suspension of disbelief just snaps. And it's often not quiet.
No, it's more like an exasperated shout, like you said.
Yeah. For an episode to really bomb with fans, it usually messes up the basics. Plot coherence, character motivation, simple cause and effect.
Stuff you need for any story, really.
Precisely. So that initial reaction from them, it really primes you for a critical viewing. It tells you something fundamental might be off here.
So getting into the details, the Final Frontier podcast laid out the basics for us. They noted the star dates, 3087.6 to 3088.7.
Which puts it in 2267 in universe time.
And it originally aired March 30, 1967. Then came the jabs, a sarcastic "for shame, sir, for shame," aimed at the writer, Don Less.
Hey, yeah, I remember that.
And this repeated plea to the director, Gert Oswald, "Stop it."
Just stop it. You could hear the playful exasperation, though. Like, they're still fans, but oh boy.
Totally. It shows how invested they are, even when they're tearing it apart.
And we should probably pause for a second, think about 1960s TV production. It wasn't easy.
No, definitely not. Tight schedules, right? Low budgets.
Absolutely. Very little room for error, rudimentary effects, matte paintings, that overlay footage they mentioned.
The dreaded overlay footage.
Exactly. Limited locations, scripts changing constantly, sometimes right on set.
So some choices might have been compromises, basically? Things that look weird now?
Could be. It's always a balance, right?
Yeah.
Acknowledging the limitations, but still looking at the choices they did make within those limits.
Okay, but this next part was amazing. It showed how good the Final Frontier podcast is at sniffing out trouble. They read the Paramount Plus description.
Oh yeah, the official summary.
Which just vaguely says this guy Lazarus seems to be hunting some sort of bad guy, and immediately, like instantly.
They called it.
They totally called it. One of them said, "I feel like Lazarus is going to be annoying." Just like that, with a groan.
And then the kicker.
Maybe Lazarus is probably the actual bad guy. Boom. Just from that one sentence. It was brilliant.
And what's so interesting there is how that description signals trouble. Seems to be hunting.
Yeah, the seems to be is doing a lot of work there.
It plants that seed of doubt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Suggests maybe things aren't what they look like. Deception, mistaken identity.
And some sort of bad guy? So vague.
Exactly. Vague purpose, unclear enemy. It often masks a hidden agenda in storytelling. So for experienced viewers like them who know the tropes,
Red flags everywhere.
huge red flags. It just shows how much meaning can be packed into a few words. Even in a simple summary, you can read between the lines.
Okay, so let's get into the weird stuff they pointed out early on, like the name Lazarus.
Ah, yes, the biblical reference.
They explained it, Lazarus being brought back from the dead in the Bible, but then their frustration.
Because in the episode.
He never dies. Not once. He just, and I quote them here, falls a lot.
Like constantly falling.
And McCoy keeps fixing him up. They called him a clumsy, clumsy, clumsy man.
It makes you wonder, was it supposed to be ironic? Or did they just pick a cool name without thinking about it?
Yeah, it just didn't land, whatever the intention was.
And that's important in storytelling, right? Names usually mean something. Think Achilles, Pandora. They carry weight.
Sets an expectation.
Right. So when you have a name like Lazarus, so strongly tied to resurrection, and the character just trips a lot, it feels like a missed opportunity.
Or just confusing. Like, what's the point?
Exactly. Is it clever irony or just sloppy writing? It leaves you wondering, just like it left them wondering.
Then there's the whole space winking out thing. The Enterprise gets rocked by this energy pulse.
Spock reports gravity fluctuating to zero.
And space momentarily winked out of existence. The Final Frontier podcast had a field day with that.
The overlay footage again.
Oh, yeah, the dreaded overlay footage. But they were seriously questioning the term winking out. Like, is that technical? What does it even mean for space to not exist for a second?
You measure non-existence. That was their point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, totally separate but also funny, they noticed Kirk signing paperwork.
Oh, the mysterious gold shirt lady handing him the PAD?
And he doesn't even look at it, just signs it. They joked about his auto pen.
And how travel is 90% administrative?
Which feels so old school now, with everything digital.
It does. But it raises that interesting point about bureaucracy in sci-fi. Even in the future, there's paperwork.
Apparently so.
It's kind of humanizing, maybe, but also shows how those 1960s realities creep in. And there are questions about measuring non-existence or gravity in space.
Yeah, the science questions.
It highlights how tricky scientific language is in fiction. When does it sound cool and believable, and when does it just sound like, well, nonsense?
Technobabble gone wrong.
Pretty much.
You know.
You need some internal logic, even for the impossible stuff.
They did add that funny comment, though. Space nerd stuff. Science is fun, kids. Which, it is.
Absolutely.
But they really dug into the science logic, or lack thereof. Like, how do you measure something that doesn't exist? If you can measure it, doesn't it have to exist somehow?
That's a good point. A philosophical pretzel.
And if zero gravity means non-existence, then all of space shouldn't exist. Which, clearly, it does. They weren't just being picky. They were genuinely trying to follow the show's logic.
And finding it wanting.
Totally. They even brought up that point about hyperspace travel, how unlikely it is to actually hit anything. Referencing Kyle Hill, I think.
Yeah, the odds are astronomical, literally. Space is mostly empty.
Right. Like 500 billion solar systems you'd have to go through to hit something randomly, not like the dense asteroid fields in movies.
Which they also mentioned asteroid belts are mostly empty space, too.
It's fascinating how they engage with the science, or the pseudoscience. Star Trek uses technobabble, sure, but usually it tries to be somewhat consistent.
And that's the key internal consistency. You make a deal with the audience. Okay, we have warp drive, accept it. But then you have to stick to the rules you set up.
And here, the rules seem to break down for them. Measuring non-existence, 0G meaning nothingness.
It fractures that suspension of disbelief. Even in sci-fi, you need rules. If the rules keep changing or don't make sense, you lose the audience.
Okay, let's talk about Lazarus actually showing up. Classic setup. Sensors pick up a human where there wasn't one before. Wonder if that's related to the space winking.
Gee, you think?
Kirk and Spock beam down, find this barely hidden spacecraft. Then Lazarus pops out looking disheveled.
And promptly falls off a cliff.
Almost immediately. The Final Frontier podcast had some great lines about the location Gorok, they called it, but how it looked exactly like every other planet they land on.
The classic Southern California quarry look.
Yep. They joked the Enterprise just keeps landing in the same park, and they noted the real diverse group of red shirts beaming down to.
Uh-oh. We know what that means.
Instant dread for the background characters. And the fall itself, they picked up on the sound of the fall.
The Wilhelm scream tangent, that was great.
It was. They paused to look it up, confirmed it came from a 1951 movie, Distant Drums, guy getting eaten by an alligator.
And shouted out the stunt guy, because those rocks look genuinely nasty.
Yeah, jagged rocks. Brave stuntman.
Well, using those familiar Earth locations was standard practice back then. Budget, logistics, it gives early sci-fi that distinct look.
Charming, but also kind of funny now.
Definitely. And the red shirt comment, that's pure Star Trek trope territory, isn't it? A shorthand for danger.
Totally. And the Wilhelm scream, even if it's just a stock sound, it adds this layer, doesn't it? Either drama or, in this case, maybe accidental comedy.
Sound design is powerful, even with simple stock sounds.
So, back on the Enterprise, Lieutenant Masters reports that the lithium crystals were drained by the disturbance.
Except
the Final Frontier podcast instantly corrected. She's an ensign, not a lieutenant. They were all over the missing stripes on her uniform.
fan details. Gotta love them.
But they also made a really important point here, something they genuinely praised.
Yes, the casting of ensign masters. Janet McLaughlin.
A black woman as a science officer in a position of competence and authority in the 1960s.
Absolutely remarkable. You really have to stress that. The civil rights movement was happening right then. To show her just doing her job, being knowledgeable, in charge, it was revolutionary.
No big deal made of it, just presented as normal, which was the point.
Exactly. Truly forward-thinking. And the Final Frontier podcast also mentioned that dropped subplot from the script.
Oh yeah, romance between Masters and Lazarus.
Right. And they kind of wistfully thought maybe that would have made the episode better.
More interesting, they said. Which maybe tells you something about the plot we did get if a potentially messy romance seemed like an improvement.
Yeah, that's a fair point. A bit of damning with faint praise, maybe.
Okay, and now we got to talk about the sponsor break they had. Paramount Plus,
Yes, the sponsor read.
which they delivered with maximum enthusiasm, calling it the greatest, bestest, most stupendous streaming surge ever.
That really committed to the bit.
Totally. They listed everything. SpongeBob to Spock, Live Sports, Galaxy Quest.
Star Trek adjacent stuff.
Right. And the Paramount Plus original treks, like Picard, plus Hey Arnold, Transformers, and the Ninja Turtles.
Oh, the Turtles tangent.
That was a whole thing. They talked about the new animation style, admitting maybe it wasn't for them, but the kids like it, which was fair.
But they loved Mutant Mayhem.
Absolutely praised it for making the Turtles actual teenagers, finally. Found that really refreshing.
And the reference to the middle-aged Mutant Ninja Turtles from SNL?
Classic. Showed their pop culture range. It was a really funny, personalized ad read.
Even the sponsor break had personality.
And, of course, the offer. First 7 days free, joking about watching Trek on the company's dime.
Stealing your boss's money. Very on brand for them.
Okay, so back to the plot, such as it is. Starfleet Command is freaking out.
Understandably, if space is winking out everywhere.
Right. Every quadrant is seeing this effect. They fear an invasion, so they order all ships OUT except the Enterprise.
Leaving Kirk to handle the potential universe-ending threat. Alone. Again.
Pretty much. The Final Frontier podcast was yelling at their screen, "Move, Starfleet, move!" Like, get everyone involved.
And they noted Kirk seems weirdly calm about it all.
Yeah, like he's seen this before. They mentioned Trelane, but then corrected themselves because Trelane comes later.
Classic fan brain. Knowing the internal chronology versus the airing order.
But it highlights Kirk's almost unflappable nature, even when reality itself is breaking down.
And connecting this back to storytelling basics. Occam's razor, right? The simplest explanation is usually the best.
Like the hoofbeats think horses, not zebras thing they mentioned?
Exactly. Or in tech troubleshooting, what changed right before it broke? Here, a mysterious guy shows up, and then space starts winking.
The connection seems pretty obvious to the audience.
Right, and the audience often figures it out faster than the characters, which can be frustrating if the plot ignores the obvious answer for too long.
They had that funny aside about zebras too, didn't they? Not actually horses, more like donkeys, with weak backs.
Yeah, typical tangent for them, blending humor and odd facts. But it underscores the point. Focus on the likely cause, which is Lazarus.
And here's another gem from their commentary. They pointed out this is the first time we see live two-way communication with Starfleet Command.
Ah, the proto-Zoom call.
Exactly. They called it the first Star Trek Zoom meeting. Joked about Starfleet finally getting the Enterprise license for their high-speed internet.
Hilarious. A great anachronistic observation.
Meanwhile, Lazarus keeps fading in and out, apparently encountering his double in this dimensional corridor thingy.
Which is causing the winking effect, supposedly.
Spock confirms a rip in space-time. Lazarus says his enemy wants to destroy the universe, demands the lithium.
Kirk says no.
Lazarus steals it anyway, then immediately blames the other guy. Standard villain move.
Predictable.
And the Final Frontier podcast was just piling on the critiques of Lazarus here. His facial hair.
The offensive facial hair. Fu Manchu energy, they called it.
Yeah. And the weird lighting effect on his eyes to make him look evil.
The Charlie X effect. Another deep-cut reference for the fans.
Totally. They love Kirk's disbelief when Lazarus is like, why believe Spock over me, a guy you just met?
As if.
And Spock's comeback, that logical takedown, they called it a solid burn. Basically, I'm not saying this, I'm saying you are a liar.
Pure Spock. A moment of beautiful, logical clarity in the chaos.
But that clarity doesn't last long, does it? Because then came the fight scene.
Oh boy, the big fight, if you can call it that.
The Final Frontier podcast absolutely lost it here. They described trying to watch two invisible people fighting.
Which is hard.
They had to rewind multiple times, just trying to figure out what was going on.
And failing, I gather.
Completely failing. They said it gave them Hypnotoad vibes.
Ah. Perfect Futurama reference for something mesmerizingly confusing.
They called it a psychedelic interdimensional jingle fight. That phrase just perfectly captures the visual noise.
Jingle jangle fight. I like that.
They said it gave them a headache, made them wonder if they'd accidentally ingested some sort of narcotic.
Is that bad, huh?
Just pure visual confusion. The effects completely fail to show anything coherent.
And again, we can acknowledge the limits of 1967 effects, sure. Making invisible combat look good on a TV budget.
Tough.
Very tough. But the goal of effects is still to tell the story visually. If they actively confuse the audience...
They've failed.
Right. You can't tell who's fighting, what's happening, what the stakes are. It turns drama into chaos. As they said, a headache.
It really broke the immersion for them. And then came the twist they called stupid.
The time traveler reveal.
Yeah, but first they noticed some bad ADR from Shatner.
Ooh, really? Lip sync issues.
Yep. A close-up where his mouth and words didn't match. They talked about how hard dubbing live action is, but it was still distracting.
Pulls you right out of the moment.
Totally. And then Lazarus drops the bombshell. He's a time traveler. His ship isn't just a ship, it's a dimensional corridor gateway. And the planet, his old home world.
Wow, just layers upon layers.
The Final Frontier podcast reaction was pure gold. Would you believe me if I told you this is about to get stupid?
Oh, no.
Followed by this exasperated, a time traveler, what? They nailed it by calling it a hat on a hat.
Meaning just adding unnecessary complexity.
Exactly. Piling on another huge concept onto an already overloaded, confusing plot. Interdimensional travel and time travel. Why?
It's a classic storytelling problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Throwing more elements in doesn't always make it better. Sometimes it just makes it muddier.
Especially when neither concept is explained well.
Right. You overwhelm the narrative. Their hat on a hat comment is perfect. Instead of clarifying things or raising the stakes meaningfully, it just adds confusion.
They were totally lost on how the switching worked, who was good, who was bad.
And the actor trying to play both poorly defined roles.
Mm-hmm.
It all just spirals into incoherence. Even for sci-fi, it needs some anchor.
Greetings, boys and girls. My name is Isaiah Vargas. For over 3 decades, R.L. Stine's Goosebumps has reigned as one of the best-selling book series in history, spawning a monster franchise that's lasted since 1992 and spawning a massive fan base. Folks who love to talk about this influential series. And that's where we come in. Join the Goosebumps crew, Nick Shaw, Bjorn Panelik, and myself every week as we dive into the world of Goosebumps and talk about everything from the books, TV shows, movies, video games, merchandise, and so much more. Many like-minded Goosebumps fans and a growing list of special guests join us. So if you want Goosebumps, get with the program. Tune in to the Goosebumps crew every week on YouTube and audio platforms. Become a Goosebumps crew member today. Listen with the lights on.
Okay, so let's try to make sense of the conflicting universes part. Kirk and Spock come up with a hypothesis.
The matter-antimatter idea.
Right. Lazarus is two guys, one from our matter universe, one from an antimatter one. If they touch outside the corridor, pick-a-coom, both universes gone.
High stakes indeed, if it made sense.
Which, according to the Final Frontier podcast, it absolutely did not. They immediately shot it down. That makes no sense whatsoever.
And they had backup. Right. Later Trek.
Yep. They brought up the 2009 movie where old Spock and Kelvin Spock are literally in the same room, chatting, no annihilation.
A massive inconsistency within the franchise's own established lore, even if established later.
For them, it totally undercut the whole premise of this episode, a huge plot hole.
And that's where using real science concepts like matter-antimatter annihilation gets tricky in fiction.
You borrow the cool term, but ignore the details.
Sometimes. You use it metaphorically, but then the plot treats it literally, and inconsistencies pop up.
Yeah.
Star Trek usually tries to maintain internal logic, even with its made-up science.
Technobabble usually has some function.
Right. But here, as they pointed out, if two Lazaruses annihilate, why doesn't Kirk, who's made of matter, have a problem when he pops into the antimatter universe?
Good point. He should go boom, too, by their own logic.
Exactly. The rules are applied arbitrarily. And when the rules feel arbitrary, the audience checks out. The stakes don't feel real.
So Kirk goes through, meets anti-Lazarus, the supposedly good one.
Or at least the less overtly destructive one.
And he says he stole the dilithium to stop his insane matter twin from invading.
And his solution.
Destroy the dimensional ship while both Lazaruses are inside, trapping them forever. Throughout time, he says.
Right.
The Final Frontier podcast's reaction was just perfect. Just questions. Why? And and stop it.
Sounds about right.
They ask the obvious stuff. Why doesn't anti-Lazarus just break his own ship? Why trap them forever? What does that even mean?
Simpler solutions seem readily available.
Totally. They suggested just breaking the ship. Or Kirk could just phaser mad Lazarus in our universe and let him spontaneously explode based on the faulty logic already established.
Much cleaner.
Way cleaner.
Yeah.
And less eternally convoluted.
And that really highlights plot contrivance, doesn't it? When the audience, or commentators like them, can easily think of better, simpler, more logical solutions than the characters.
It means the plot is forced.
Exactly. The narrative logic breaks down. Star Trek usually tries for some kind of logical, even if techno-babble-heavy, resolution. This just felt unnecessarily complicated and illogical.
It makes the characters look dumb.
It does. And it makes the audience feel like the writers just needed an ending, any ending, rather than one that actually made sense within the story's own rules.
So the grand finale, the reckoning, as you called it.
If you can call it that.
Kirk confronts Mad Lazarus, pushes him into the dimensional doorway.
A bit anticlimactic, maybe.
Feels like it. Then he orders the Enterprise to fire phasers, destroy the ship, trap them both. The end.
Yes.
The Final Frontier podcast just threw up their hands. Their take was basically, let's just pretend that didn't happen.
Collective agreement to forget.
Pretty much. They
Yeah.
joked about the Enterprise night crew showing up later like, oh, what happened here? Where'd those guys go?
Captures that feeling of, wait, what? Is that it?
Total confusion and dissatisfaction.
And that kind of ambiguous, illogical ending, it really does leave you feeling cheated, doesn't it?
Yeah, not in a cool, mysterious way, but in a that made no sense way.
Right. Ambiguity can work in conception, but only if the story leading up to it built a solid foundation. Here, the foundation was shaky, so the ambiguity just feels like confusion.
Like they couldn't figure out a real ending.
Possibly. It undermines everything that came before, leaving that lingering taste of incoherence.
They did circle back to the mirror universe idea, though.
Decided this wasn't it, right? Anti-Lazarus wasn't really evil.
No, he seemed more rational, trying to stop the crazy one. But it led them to this bigger fan theory, the Star Trek multiverse.
Connecting the dots.
Yeah. They counted at least 4. Kelvin timeline, original timeline, this antimatter universe, and the mirror universe.
That's a solid list.
Then they speculated maybe Strange New World is a 5th, and maybe even the Orville is a 6th.
Getting ambitious now.
They totally were. They wanted Seth MacFarlane to play Kirk in an Orville crossover.
Okay, that's peak fan theorizing. And kind of amazing.
It really is, and it shows how even a really flawed episode
Can spark something interesting.
Exactly. This episode, clumsy as it was, introduced parallel universe ideas that maybe, indirectly, fed into the bigger multiverse concepts later on.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Even narrative duds can plant seeds for future stories, or, at the very least, fuel decades of fan speculation and creativity.
Fans are great at taking those threads and weaving something cool out of them.
Absolutely. They build connections the original writers might never have intended.
And we definitely have to mention the production chaos behind this episode. The Final Frontier podcast brought up the John Drew Barrymore story.
Drew Barrymore's father, cast as Lazarus.
Originally. But then he just didn't show up for filming. No explanation.
Well, that throws a wrench in the works.
Big time. He got suspended by SAG for 6 months because of it. A real Hollywood story.
So they had to scramble.
Totally. And it affected the locations. They were supposed to shoot more at Vasquez Rocks, the famous truck location.
But couldn't finish because of the disruption.
So the art department had to quickly prep a stage, Desaloof Stage 10, to film the alternate universe bits. They noted it looked different enough, but also similar enough. Quick thinking.
Ingenuity born of necessity. But it shows how backstage drama can really impact what ends up on screen.
No kidding. And then the final verdict from the Final Frontier podcast. They didn't mince words.
The fan convention poll.
Yep. Voted the 9th worst episode of the Star Trek franchise back in 2016. That's significant.
That's a strong consensus from the hardcore fans.
And their own personal take. The worst episode, at least thus far, of Star Trek, the original series.
Ouch. High praise it is not.
Not exactly glowing.
And it really connects back to those production problems, doesn't it? The rush schedules, casting issues, and limited resources. You can often see that strain in the final product.
It shows up as plot holes, inconsistencies.
Exactly. And the fact that fans are still talking about it, analyzing it, ranking it decades later, it just shows the passion Star Trek inspires.
Even the bad episodes become part of the legend.
Absolutely. The flaws are dissected just as much as the triumphs. It's all part of the shared history.
So to cleanse the palate, as it were, the Final Frontier podcast offered some better alternatives. Episodes that did similar themes, but well.
A public service, really.
Totally. They recommended Past Tense from DS9, the two-parter, called it Solid Time Travel with Social Commentary.
Good choice.
And several Orville episodes, Identity If the Stars Should Appear, Happy Arbor Day, praise them for handling complex sci-fi ideas smartly.
Giving the audience homework they might actually enjoy.
Right. And then the announcement for their next commentary, which sounded like a breath of fresh air for them.
Ah, the contrast.
The City on the Edge of Forever, universally loved.
A true classic. Harlan Ellison script, Joan Collins.
Yep. They called it a real good time travel episode back to the 1930s. A fan favorite where everyone, quote, bats 1,000.
You could probably hear the relief and excitement in their voices, moving from one of the worst to arguably the best.
Definitely. What a swing.
And that contrast is so telling, isn't it? Within the same show, the same franchise, you can have such incredible highs and such bewildering lows.
Shows the impact of good writing, clear direction, strong performances.
Exactly. City on the Edge of Forever is the benchmark. Alternative Factor is, well, a cautionary tale.
Those part of the tapestry, though.
In their own ways, yes. Both fuel the conversation, teach us about the show, and about storytelling itself.
So that wraps up our look at the Alternative Factor, seen through the very entertaining lens of the Final Frontier podcast's commentary.
Was certainly an experience.
Even with all its flaws, maybe because of them, their reaction sparked a lot of humor and, surprisingly, some deep questions, even if the questions were mostly what, why.
It proves even notoriously bad episodes can generate great discussion.
Definitely seems that way.
So what does this all mean for us, as viewers? These episodes, like the Alternative Factor, they get panned, they're weak, but they stick around. They generate so much talk.
Why is that?
Maybe the bad ones teach us more sometimes. More about what makes a story work, what we expect as an audience. Maybe more than the perfect ones do.
Interesting thought, like learning from mistakes.
Exactly. They highlight the importance of clarity, consistency, logic, things you might take for granted until they're missing. It's like critical education through negative example.
So even the missteps serve a purpose.
Perhaps they do. In understanding what makes the great stories truly great. A provocative thought to leave you with.
Definitely something to think about. So we encourage you, if you're feeling brave, watch the Alternative Factor yourself. Or maybe try one of those better alternatives the Final Frontier podcast suggested. Form your own opinions.
Join the 60-year debate.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration of Star Trek's weirder side. We'll catch you next time on the AI Analysis Podcast.
The Final Frontier Podcast. These are the voyages of Jake Boger and Justin Spur. Our weekly mission: to explore memories of Star Trek's strange new worlds, to recall the search for new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has had the spare time to go before.